Sup, everybody? This is Josh, or Hybrid. I'm known as both.
This is CJ.
All right, this is JaeRoar.
Yo, I'm Tommy from Zindie Comics.
So, yeah, if you couldn't tell by the thumbnail, title, actual video itself, description, whatever have you, or all the dislikes that are probably relevant, whatever, I don't care. Anyways, this is about the DC Comics film slate and the Marvel Comics film slate. We're contrasting for all you English nerds out there that love that shit. But, yeah, that's what we're doing. So basically, in case there'll be a graphic on the screen, in case you guys don't know, just to catch you up, on the Marvel film slate that they released. Now, the thing about theirs is that they announced dates for movies, but they didn't announce which movie would be on the dates. A lot of them are speculating right now, like a Black Panther one, Doctor Strange one has pretty much been put, on there just due to like producer comments and whatnot of when it's coming out. So that one's kind of like iffy because it's a fuzzy picture, if that makes sense. But DC was like, we're gonna give you the HD picture with DVR control and everything. Like they just came out with everything they had behind their hands. So 2016, this will be on the screen. Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, and Suicide Squad. 2017, Wonder Woman and Justice League Part 1. 2018, The Flash and Aquaman. 2019, Shazam and Justice League Part 2, which is interesting how they're doing that two-year gap. 2020, Cyborg and Green Lantern. And then, I guess, in between that time, we're supposed to be potentially getting a Man of Steel sequel, which is just Superman, not Superman and Batman, and then a solo Batman film to go more into Affleck's Batman. So, all in all, from hearing about this, what do you guys think about DC's film slate?
It's great. We finally got something because, like when San Diego Comic-Con, we all thought they were going to announce something, which doesn't make sense. They should have, but I guess they were unsure on certain actors and directors and writers and all that, so they didn't want to just be like, hey, here is the list, but we have nothing. So I guess they just wanted to wait and make sure they got at least a couple actors. So they got, Gal Gadot, they got Jason Momoa, they got that guy who's playing Flash, you got The Rock who's playing Black Adam, which is weird because you usually start with the hero, but they went straight to the villain. And then you got Ray Fisher, who's going to be appearing in Dawn of Justice as Cyborg. So it's really interesting how they got all these lists, and I'm really just because we got Justice League, right? And then we get Justice League 2 years after that. My biggest speculation is that are they going to do like a back-to-back kind of thing, kind of like the way Lord of the Rings did and all that with the Hobbit movies and all that? I'm ready to just see what they're going to do with that.
I think I'm really excited, and I said this yesterday in a conversation with Nick, another member of the Hybrid Network. I don't think you could have grown up reading these characters and being fans of these DC characters and not be at least a little bit excited for the chance, the universe, just the possibilities that they're putting together here. Because I think if we can, it's like just imagine how great it could be. I don't think a lot of people expected Marvel and the Avengers would be as good as they were when they were announced, but like this, there's so many possibilities here, and I'm just excited for it. But mark my words, I don't think, you talk about Justice League Part 2, I don't think that's going to be a Part 2. I think somebody misspoke.
But it's called a Part 2.
It just says Justice League 2. And I don't think because to me what doesn't make sense is why they would release it a year afterwards and they would have Flash and Aquaman in the middle. Like, so basically it's like, oh, you're going to fight. I don't think it can technically be like a two-parter. I think it would qualify more as an actual sequel. I just don't think it makes sense.
Well, I'd say it's probably... Yeah. I think it's probably like a two-parter in terms of overall like arcing story, but I'm sure it's like there's a beginning, middle, end. Yeah, but I mean like probably that's why for some reason on the thing I got it says Part 1, Part 2. Maybe that's just whoever typed it up. They hit error.
I don't know.
The thing is that they're filming it back to back. I guess I don't know how truthful that rumor is, but here's all right. Did everybody voice their opinion already? Because I wanted to go last. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I think that this film slate is like, it shows confidence. I mean, we already have movies all up to 2020, and I don't think Marvel we don't even know what their movies are, and they only went up to 2019. And I'm also excited that we're going to be seeing a Cyborg and a Green Lantern film. Like, we didn't really think that we were going to see another Green Lantern film because, of course, they failed. And I'm glad that they're actually giving, Cyborg their own solo film. That's pretty interesting. I mean, there's not too much Cyborg villains out there to, like, kind of just give us, but now we're actually getting our own Cyborg solo film. And honestly, I think this is a really good lineup, and I'm excited,
See,
Right.
I was talking, quick before we go to the next subject, I was talking to my stream about this when I was live streaming. I was saying, like, isn't it funny how, like, Shazam is first, then Justice League 2. We don't know if that's, confirmed that is a Justice League 2. But what if, like, Shazam is going to be the start of the whole Pandora box and then everything, and then it jumps to Justice League 2, and then they jump into Justice League 2 against the Crime Syndicate, right? And then next year, right, then they defeat Crime Syndicate, right? But what if next year, 2020, you get Cyborg and his villain is Grid from, Crime Syndicate?
That would be fantastic. But it confirmed that Darkseid is the villain for Justice League 2?
It's not confirmed. It's just
They don't know. Like,
speculated.
he's gonna be in one of them. We just don't know if his partners.
I think the current rumor is Brainiac for Justice League 1, Darkseid for Justice League 2, if I remember correctly.
Then what's for Justice League 3?
They haven't announced one, so we don't even know if they're gonna go that far. Probably, yeah. They pull a Crisis, and see, I don't want to be the negative one here.
No, go ahead.
But here's my take on the DC film slate. I think it's definitely ambitious, and if they pull it off, props to them, because we all deserve a good DC universe of films, just good DC films in general, really. My only problem though is that for years DC has been all bark and no bite. Like, they announced a Justice League film years ago. They got as far as casting the actors, and they were about the film, and they dropped on it. They've done that before with other projects. It seems like they're not doing that anymore because they got a new CEO, if I remember correctly, who's very enthusiastic about the DC films, which is great. And that's really what they need, I think, over at Warner Brothers.
Well, he's enthusiastic about money and the money they can make from these films.
That's true. Well, supposedly he worked with DC Entertainment previously before he became the CEO, so I think he has like he really personally somewhat really wants to push these films, not just for like the market, money value, but also just due to the fact that I think he realizes, this is definitely like something that we should be going into. But I think definitely it's ambitious. My only problem, I said like a while ago, is that DC hasn't shown that they're going to really follow through yet. Like, this really, to me, at this moment at least, I hope I'm wrong. It reminds me of Sony. Sony high off themselves with Amazing Spider-Man 2. And I say high off themselves because there's nothing else that they should have been high off of by any means. They announced Amazing Spider-Man 3, 4, Venom spin-off, Sinister Six, and now look at them. All that's in like limbo right now because they don't know what to do with themselves, because the movie they were expecting to really propel everything else and do well, which is what I'm kind of nervous with for Batman v Superman, because I want it to be a good story, and I think when Ben Affleck brought the new writer with Margot, I think when he did that, it probably helped the story go from what I'm sure Goyer wrote, which was a story that set up for another film, or a story that set up for more films. But I'm sure now it's more of a self-contained story with the possibility of branching out, which should be. But it's just certain things on here, like people are going to be really mad at me for this, but I want to break it down. Everybody's hyping up Cyborg right now because they're like, it's a big deal because African American superhero movie. We've already had African American lead hero superhero films. I don't think the fact that Cyborg's getting one is pretty cool. Armin just messaged me. He was like, "Sorry, it was raining and snowing. And Vermont problems." But anyways, we've already gotten Blade, Steel. As horrible as Steel was, we still got Steel technically. But we got movies like Blade and everything. We've already had an African American, black, whatever superhero male lead.
People forgot about your Wally West comments. People just got over that.
Everybody thinks I'm racist, even though I'm half black myself, and it's not even about race. I'm not even talking about race. I'm just talking about the fact that people are hyping up something that shouldn't be hyped up.
Mhm.
We should be more looking forward to the fact that we're getting a character that for the majority of his history has been sidelined against the A-listers, but until like the past 5 years. Like, be honest, Cyborg was not who he is today until like the last 5 years. Like before
New
he
52.
yeah, like before the New 52 and everything, and Flashpoint. Flashpoint was what Jeff Johns did with Flashpoint really pushed Cyborg, because before then Cyborg kept on getting pushed with the Teen Titans. He got pushed with the Heroes, who, because their sidekicks didn't really get the limelight. So we should be more proud of that. But at the same time, that's Cyborg's weakness, because who is he going to face? Who's going to be his antagonist? Because usually when you tell the story of Cyborg, like Cyborg, having his own comic, Cyborg, just in general, like a story Cyborg focus, it's about his origin. Or
True.
it's like they Forever Evil, where he's getting upgraded, but it's basically his origin all over again.
Bringing up
So it's like
is I think a good way to kind of transition to which movie we're most excited for and which movie
I'm
we're
not
most
done.
excited for. I think we should move on though.
I'll find a way to fit in everything else I want to say throughout the video, because right now I'm like public enemy number 1 for everybody.
Right now,
I'm pretty sure.
I just want to say I think what's divided by I think there seem to be two camps, and Josh and the rest of us, we're demonstrating, I think, there's
In
two
the rest
camps.
of us.
It's either confidence or desperation as the motivating factor behind.
I'm more
these
skeptic.
announcements. I get you, but I think a lot of people are saying, oh, look at them, they're announcing it through 2020, they're desperate because of Marvel. Or I think a lot of people are saying, oh, look at this is confidence, as was stated earlier. And I think I err more on the side of confidence, but I just think they realize what this shows to me is that they feel like we might not have another chance for a long time. Like this is the one shot we get, so we might, and that's kind of echoed by the casting that's rumored for Suicide Squad with all the A-listers, is they want to make sure they'll spend the money, they just want to do it right. So I think that's a good sign, but
I mean, why is Suicide Squad in 2016? Weren't we supposed to see Shazam in that spot? And then I guess Suicide Squad.
I don't think we had ever gotten a complete a date for Shazam. I think Suicide Squad was rumored, and it was kind of funny that it was rumored like right after Guardians of the Galaxy came out. But I think that's the one that they've been working on the most. Like they've already got a director, David Ayer, attached to the project. And if you want proof of his work, go see Fury. But I think that was that's a response to Guardians, I think. But
I think it's a response to Guardians and Sinister Six.
Yeah, it is, because Guardians is more fun and funny and kid friendly. Then you're gonna have Sinister Six, who are gonna be more kind of like the villain side. But I think with Suicide Squad, it's gonna be all like full gritty, people dying, guns everywhere, maybe sex in there if you're into that. Like they're gonna throw all kinds of stuff in there.
Oh, absolutely.
And they gave it a try with the Assault on Arkham, which had a lot of good views, and then some. Honestly, the main two factors that had me hooked on that was Deadshot and Harley Quinn. Everybody else, I was like, eh. But then they also have a list of actors. You have Ryan Gosling, Tom Hardy, and Tommy, who'd you say for Harley Quinn again?
I think it was Margot Robbie. She played in The Wolf on Wall Street.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So.
right now.
But if they put Harley in, then that's gonna be kind of weird, because then your established Joker is in this universe.
Well, they can do that if it's in the same universe as Batman v Superman, because we already have like a veteran Batman. So.
I mean, I think they're gonna have Deathstroke as like the main guy instead of Deadshot. I mean, they'll probably still throw Deadshot in there, but I would imagine Deathstroke as like, the one that they're gonna like put on all the posters and hype up the most.
It depends what characters are gonna go with, because I remember Black Manta was in it for a while. Like they can go with any kind of character they want.
So, guys, guess who just joined us?
I think I'm the only one. I look at this film slate list, right, and I'm super excited. But then, this is my inner cynic, of course, coming out. I've seen Warner Brothers time and time again announce movies. Batman v Superman. This is like the third iteration, right? Batman Beyond, Year One, Superman Flyby, Superman was the completely other version by there was J.J. Abrams. Then there was who was the other guy that was attempting to do it? There was a Kevin Smith version. Like, there's been 4 versions before Superman Returns between 1998 and 2005. Like, if they can put a movie into production and they can put out a date, but you need to show me something substantial, because Sony came out and they said, "Oh, Amazing Spider-Man 2, Amazing Spider, here's 3, here's 4, here's Venom Carnage." 6 months later, they're like, "Yeah, none of that shit's happening. We're probably going bankrupt." Like,
okay,
what about said that same thing?
Yeah,
believe it or not.
Hear me out. Okay, here's me defending DC once again. Okay, I agree with you on that. They do that shit a lot, and it's annoying. But I think this time they're serious just because they have actors ready. Wonder Woman, you got Gal Gadot. They have a Flash actor now. I've never seen him, but people say he's a good actor. Then we have Aquaman, Jason Momoa, and then we have Rock, Black Adam, and we have Cyborg. So I'm assuming these actors sign a big contract where they're gonna get some profit of, like, in some sort of way. They're gonna make they're gonna make comments out of them, kind of like the way DC's been doing that, like prequel for like TV shows and like movies. So they even did one for Man of Steel, like a prequel. So they're gonna be doing like prequel comics for each one. But like, I agree with you, they do that shit a lot. But I think they're gonna actually stick with it. They stick with their guns, because half of those actors are gonna be in Dawn of Justice. So we are gonna get to see a preview of them.
Well, let's talk about that really quick, because you bring up the actors thing. Same thing happened with the last Justice League movie. They had all the actors ready. Actors were trained to go, getting costumes ready, and then they flopped it.
Hell, they were literally. What is that guy? Army or Hammer? He was 12 hours away from recording his first scene as Batman for Justice League Mortal.
Do you know why they pulled a plug, right?
Well, because it was a wrong. I think they realized that the scrub was. It was a wrong time. Like, they couldn't do it right then. I think that was what they realized.
Yeah, it's a wrong time because they just got done doing the Superman Returns, right? And then they were working on the Batman Nolan films, and then Nolan had a say in it because he was like, I don't want a different Batman because it's going to confuse the fans. Also, in that script, they were going to use Ra's al Ghul, and that's what. So they didn't want to like just confuse the fans, like, oh, we're gonna have 2 Batmans, 2 Ra's al Ghuls, 2, then Talia al Ghul. We don't want to confuse the fans, but. They did pull the plug on that, which I think was the smart choice, because now look at what we got. We got a good lineup coming up. I think they're going to pull it off. That's just how I feel about it.
Well, let's talk about the actors really quick, because I'm a believer in casting actors for acting ability and likeness to the character they're portraying.
Mm-hmm.
I believe a part of playing an actor, or not actor, a part of an actor or actress playing a character needs to be the ability to make the audience believe they are the said character, which is usually because they look like said character. Now, with that being said, DC has done things with their actors or actresses. Like, example, Amy Adams, Lois Lane. The argument can be made that, I guess, the first introduction of Lois Lane, she was a redhead, the very first one, but basically since that onward, she's been a brunette. But that's not that big of a deal. Well, it really depends. I think it depends on the viewer, like the fan of the character kind of thing. Like, to me, I'm not a massive Lois Lane fan, so it's not going to make it or break it for me, because all the other aspects are there. But it's hard for certain, like, actors like Ezra Miller, because I've seen movies like We Need to Talk About Kevin that he's in, and he's a good actor. I know he's a good actor. But the problem I'm facing with the casting decision is that when I see him, I don't see Barry. See the character.
Yeah, you don't see Barry.
Like, I'm sure he'll do a great job with the script. Like, when he's acting and everything, I'm sure he's gonna do a great job. But it's same thing with Jason Momoa for Aquaman. When I see him, I'm sure he could pull it off.
I'm sure the vision of Aquaman they're going for, Jason Momoa, is perfect. But the vision of Aquaman I've been reading for the last 14 years is not the version they're going with, right?
Exactly.
I think that's part of the discrepancy. I mean, and I can't believe that, I'm going to say it, but Ezra Miller has so much work to do to compare to fucking Grant Gustin as the Flash on CW. Yep. He has to surpass him, or we're not going to believe that he's Barry Allen, because Grant Gustin is so good in that show, and that show is so good that they have to battle the CW, and if it doesn't look as good or as comparable, I don't believe that he's the Flash, And And I think that's, of course, goes to the problem with having the same, character appear in what is going to be a long-running TV show, because we just saw the ratings for The Flash, and, it's destroyed all CW shows previously. So that show's probably going to be on for another 5-6 years, right? We're going to have this running side by side, and if it's not as good, they're kind of fucked.
See,
I mean,
that's a good point.
Grant Gustin actually looks like Barry Allen.
I like the.
Oh yeah,
in somewhat ways,
what he
just
has
not
going
just not the
forward.
hair, just not the hair.
Well,
That's,
he's not blonde, which is
Josh, can I cut in real quick? I think it's kind of cool that you guys are making those points, because it kind of goes directly into what I'm gonna say, which is WB, and this isn't like hating on WB. They don't care. Like 99% of their target audience, maybe 90%, doesn't care that he doesn't look like Barry Allen. They don't really know who the Flash is. The Flash hasn't been in a movie, like, I don't know, ever. Most people, like, it's gonna anger us. It's gonna upset us as comic book fans. Same thing with Aquaman. Same thing with Momoa. But as long as he acts well, the audience won't care. The critics won't care.
I think that's the part that Marvel does well. Chris Evans, Chris Evans was cast as Captain America. Everybody goes, that's not Captain America. And he does the role so well, you're like, you know what, fuck that, he doesn't have the blonde hair. He's Captain America, right? I think they can win us over, but the script has to be up to par with,
Well, he gave him blonde hair.
Right, yeah.
They gotta prove, I think. But, like, for sure, I mean, he's got his work cut out for him, because another thing is the Flash is, almost comic relief. He's a lighthearted character, and everything Ezra Miller's been in is not
heavy.
It's the opposite. I mean, it's critically acclaimed for sure, but it's all very serious. Like, we need to talk about Kevin is like, some dark.
That's a
shit,
pretty
but...
Like, I have the same problem when they casted Henry Cavill as Superman. He's a great actor, but the stuff he's in is not really tonally fit what Superman's usually paired up with. I think Ben Affleck is perfect, casting wise, because tonally he's been in a lot of movies that fit the type of tone and genre Batman would be in for film. So I think that's fine. Like, I think he's set. He has the appearance of the character down.
I mean, have any of you guys seen what was that TV show, The Tutors, that Cavill in?
I know my mom loved that show.
You see him in that, and then you compare him to Man of Steel. You're like, when did your acting ability completely go away from you? And I think that was a problem with the script, right? And the way they were telling him to act, because that guy has acting chops. It's like when you watch Hayden Christensen in the prequels, and then you see him in something outside of that movie, you're like, how come he can actually act? Like, there's a discrepancy to what's happening with some of these actors. And, like you said, Ben Affleck, I think he's going to, blow people away because he's a phenomenal actor. I think all these actors have it in them, but it's all going to come down to how simplified do you make everything, and how good do their, acting chops actually show up on screen. And, I think the big issue I think a lot of people will have is, of course, Marvel did it one way. Every superhero, build them up. We know who they are. So when they get to the Avengers, you don't need an explanation, right? I think they have it against them to, throw them all into one movie where we're kind of going to be like, man, there's a lot of stuff to explain here because, we don't have that build up. Now, if the actor can really portray that character, and I believe it in the first, scene they show up in, they're probably going to sell me on him. But if he, doesn't really do so good, it holds back the entire group. I think that's the really big issue, and I think Edward Norton, for as good as he was in Incredible Hulk, would have done that to the Avengers because he's so above all of their levels as an actor. I think any scene he would have been in, he would have outshined most of them, including Robert Downey Jr.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic. He was the strongest point of the Incredible Hulk.
Yep.
He held that movie up by himself. And no doubt in my mind, I feel like if someone else was in the Incredible Hulk, that movie would be average.
Yeah.
Sub-average, but instead, and he really dedicated himself to the role too. If you hear any of his interviews, what he did, he worked with the producers, the writer, really to truly capture the essence of the Hulk as best he could.
And they shafted 90% of it.
Yeah, very true.
See, I guess it's a good time to bring up something like the writing in Man of Steel and what kind of writing we can expect from the future of these DC projects. A lot of stuff has changed since Man of Steel came out, and since it's 5 years now, or I guess now, 3 years between Man of Steel and BVS. Just, what kind of writing changes we're going to see. Man of Steel went really heavy on the themes and I guess, philosophy for some reason. I didn't really get it, and I still don't necessarily like it.
It's because what Nolan did. That was
yeah.
Nolan's thing.
But it'll be interesting to see if they can get out of that mold, because they're really gonna have to. I think that's why people like the Avengers, is because they're not hitting you over the head with, oh, Clark's reading Plato in this scene. You'll never see like Tony Stark reading Plato.
Don't even talk to me about Plato.
Okay, like I have a question for all of you guys. Out of all the actors, like what I mean, okay, what won the Marvel universe? Robert Downey Jr., right? Like everybody just loved him. Who do you think is gonna be that guy in the DC? Do you think it's gonna be Ben Affleck? It's gonna so Ben Affleck is gonna have to carry the weight on his back.
I believe so, because the reason I think Robert Downey Jr. connected so much is because everyone doubted him obviously at first, and then he did well acting wise. But the thing is that what Robert Downey Jr. did that no other actor could probably do with that role is that, and Jon Favreau saw this, and Jon Favreau used this to explain why he casted him. Robert Downey Jr. is as close to Tony Stark, like the trials and tribulations personally that he went through. You're not going to get any closer to Tony Stark than that.
Right.
So Robert Downey Jr. could use that to properly portray a character as close as you could, because he's a fictional character. Obviously, you're not going to get 100%. And I feel like Ben Affleck, certain things have happened in his life. He's mentioned this in interviews without going too deep, because he's still a very, close to the chest kind of guy when it comes to personal things, which is, I think, good as a celebrity. But he's been around for a while. I'm sure there's been things in his life that has happened. Obviously, his parents didn't die in an alley, but, I'm sure, example, like they're going with the Dark Knight Returns Batman. That Batman's a veteran Batman. He's kind of like grumpy all the time about, his previous endeavors and whatnot.
Well, if he wants tragedies to drive his character, there's Daredevil.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Daredevil. Like Daredevil is basically not Marvel's Batman film, because it wasn't Marvel that made it, but it's close enough to the character that he kind of looked back at it as like a failure that keeps driving him onwards. So like he wants to make up for it, kind of thing.
Like, am I the only one who feels like that out of all the actors they cast? Right? I feel like that The Rock is going to be the first to walk away, and I'm only saying that because his movie is so far out, right? If he signed this contract and they don't start soon, if Fox comes to him and says, hey, we want you to be Apocalypse, here's $5 million, his agent is going to tell him, dude, you have to take this, because this Shazam movie, it could not happen potentially since it's so far out, right? Like, he has to be a guy that obviously takes other comic book roles, because that's where he makes his money, right? Like, he took G.I. Joe and he saved the franchise. I mean, if Marvel realistically goes to him, or maybe someone even else, like Fox or Sony, you never know, right? They go to him and they offer him a paycheck, he's going to jump on that, because honestly, this movie being still 5 years out, that means they're not going to start production for another 3 years. Like, that is a long time to sit on something with being obligated to DC without taking some other role, right? And I mean, we've seen this with other actors. I mean, what was her name that played Jamie Alexander, who played Sif? She said Marvel wouldn't even let her enter the DC lot, because they're like, no, we have you for 4 more movies. You're going to sit here. You can't even audition. And she can't. So,
I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I think the big kind of wild card here is he telling the truth when he says that Black Adam is one of his favorite characters? Because if it's a passion project for him, then he probably won't walk away. But I see what you're saying. I think we all expected Shazam to be kind of like Tommy mentioned, in the place of Suicide Squad in 2016.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I was shocked that it was so late. But I guess they must really be having a hard time finding Captain Marvel.
Honestly, they should switch the date for Flash and Shazam just to make it a little bit short. That's what I feel they should have done.
Then you got Ezra Miller, who's like, well, I mean, I don't think Marvel would necessarily go out on a limb to cast Ezra Miller. He's not really on the radar.
Yeah, switch the dates. It will make it simple, and then that's why I think it will be more simple. And also, there's another question: since Black Adam, The Rock, or Shazam, we don't even have an actor on Shazam or Billy Batson, do you think The Rock could make an appearance maybe in Wonder Woman, Justice League, or even like Suicide Squad or something?
Actually, funny you say that. So, and I'm actually supporting DC a little bit here. Shocker, I know. From a chronological storytelling standpoint, having Shazam, the movie, as far away as it is great. I know, and obviously I'm not writing the movies for them, but when I wrote my screenplays, I did that on purpose. Like the Shazam one is far away for a reason, because the thing with like Shazam and everything is that you have to give a reason for the Wizard to seek out a new champion. So having something like the Justice League happen would be a good reason for the Wizard to seek a new champion. Also, with Wonder Woman, I think the possibility of having Black Adam appear is highly possible due to the fact that Black Adam was a champion of the Egyptian pantheon of gods. And the gods are closely, since it's pretty much confirmed that Zeus is the father of Wonder Woman in this DC cinematic universe, which is awesome. I'm glad they're going with that. They could easily do the whole god interplay. Like, they can reference it easily. They could be like, they can say, because at least what I did with my DC screenplay was I basically got to a thing where the gods choose a champion to represent them. Wonder Woman is the Greek god's champion. Black Adam was the Egyptian god's champion. They could easily do like a reference like Black Adam or like Teth Adam, whatever they're going to call him. They could easily say like, oh, he was, the champion of this pantheon but failed, or something like that. Just like a little Easter egg, a nice little hint. But speaking of my screenplays, I don't know if you guys remember this, but I emailed them to DC. Like I directly sent it to someone that worked at DC.
Right, I remember.
And I guess it got sent around, so DC emailed me back on their company email or whatever. And I thought it was hilarious because the whole way they're doing Green Lantern is 95% exactly how I wrote it.
Get royalties.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't even care. I just want a good DC movie, to be honest.
Same.
That's all I ask.
Wants to bathe in a tub of $100 bills.
I will not say no.
I would like to one day wake up and get a message from Matt that says, "Wow, DC didn't fuck up today," and I'd be like, "Oh wow, look, Matt's praising something."
That's a sign of the times, dude.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and it's messed up because his whole walls and every comic he has is DC. He doesn't read Marvel or support their comics at all. So it's like this weird, split between media and comics.
Jeez.
Matt's running around like, oh my god, Superman's so good.
So I think something we should get to, which is inevitable. So I don't know if you guys have remembered this, but when Marvel released their unofficial release date thing, they had film in 2018 and then one film in 2019. Now the rumor, which I could see them easily doing, is that 2018's Avengers 3 and then 2019's Avengers 4, because there's only one movie for 2019 that they announced film date wise.
Right.
That movie would have to be big.
Yeah.
For them to be as confident as they are to only release one movie that whole year. So I definitely think it's Avengers 4.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because, to me, DC announcing all these movies, as great as it is, right, and as positive as everybody is right now, Marvel looks at this and goes, that Wonder Woman, we have 3 movies before that are blank checks. Why don't we just throw out, Captain Marvel out there? They can literally now strategically position their movies ahead of theirs, right? Like, they have Cyborg 2020. You know how long now Marvel has to do Black Panther? They can literally put their feet up being like, we're lucky now, right? Like, I feel like with announcing all these movies, they kind of made a mistake announcing what they were for such a time out, because Marvel can now go out there and be like, okay, we can do Next Avengers, we can do, West Coast Avengers. Like, they can strategically position everything ahead of now to beat them. So, and I mean, we're not even going to count Fox into this because, once again, Fox came out and surprised people with Days of Future Past, which, obviously showed box office strength, and wherever they go from now with Apocalypse, that could be a huge thing. We're not even talking about Deadpool yet, which Deadpool is going to be a huge movie just because of the name value. Like, I think there's a lot more competition than what we're actually seeing now, for what's coming. So it's going to be rough.
What I'm seeing is Justice League 2 is coming out with Shazam 2019. Now, what I'm seeing here is a potential of the same predicament we had with Batman v Superman and Captain America 3. Do you guys think Justice League 2 and Avengers 4, if it is Avengers 4, will come head-to-head for 2019?
There's a chance.
There's a
I
chance.
can see
Probably
it
be
happening,
close.
and it would make me bankrupt. First off, as someone that
Oh.
worked at a movie theater, I would want to murder whoever's in charge of that.
Yeah.
Because every theater will be destroyed.
I mean, I think the way you look at it is Marvel isn't going to budge a date, right? So the way you're looking at this, Justice League 2, I have a feeling they move it to a July or something so they can get that 4th of July type of rush. Because to me, I feel like that's going to be the big movie of the summer while Marvel takes the spring. I think they've realized that battling head-to-head, you can't really win. Like, both companies stand to lose something, right? We saw Batman v Superman move to March, which is a smart move. And, I mean, if they are truly going with Civil War, you do not want to compete with Robert Downey Jr. on the screen as Iron Man because, you know, it's a huge deal. I think Justice League has the potential to do a lot more than what we're expecting, but how much it does, you know, versus a Marvel movie who's you know truly tested. Like, look at what Guardians is doing, right? No one thought that movie's going to top Days of Future Past, which is a huge established brand. DC has to look at that and go, okay, we have to worry, and they don't know the critical reception to Batman v Superman. What if we enjoy the movie as comic book fans, right? But what if the crowds don't react to it? What if the reviews say, ooh, you know, it lands into another, 40 or something, or like mid 50? That's a blow to the movie for financial reason that, they have to really go out there being like, listen, guys, I promise you the next one is going to be better. And people are going to look at it being like, well, you said that about the last one, right? Like, that's why they came out and announced all these movies to investors. So DC has a lot more to fight for here than Marvel, really. I think that's the real big, when you look at all the movies. And we're not even talking about Fantastic Four 2, because we know that's going to dominate the box office.
Yeah, and
That's
before
never
I toss it over, because I want, like Jay and ZNT and everybody else to be able to say their piece. One thing, you mentioned Justice League potentially doing more than we think it's going to. I disagree on that, and the reason I say this is because, at least at the state of the DC Cinematic Universe right now, which is not much because it's only been one movie, but from the looks of it, Batman, very dark, brooding tone. Superman was very, even though the theme was supposed to be hope, it didn't really, I didn't leave the movie theater at all feeling hopeful. It felt very, down, not depressing, but, I think the reason movies like Guardians did well is because people left the theater and they were entertained and they were happy.
Yeah.
And they had fun. So when people asked them about the movie, they had all these good things. They showed enjoyment in their facial expressions. If someone asked you about Man of Steel, you're about to have a very serious conversation. No one wants to have a very serious conversation. This isn't a board meeting.
Right.
So I think one problem Justice League might face is the fact that one thing that is attractive about these characters, at least to me about the Justice League, is that they all have all these different personalities. Like, you have Batman, who is on the other side of the spectrum from characters like Superman. Like, Superman, he's very hopeful, he's very optimistic. Same thing with Shazam also. Both those characters, very similar. I'm not going to go into the reasons why they're similar. Don't get me started on that. But, yeah, so you have one side, which is optimism. The other side, Batman, he's very, what you would call a realist or like a pessimist, things like that. And they have all the spectrums in between with the characters, like Wonder Woman. She's generally a much more serious character. Cyborg, he's generally much more lighthearted due to his, I guess, younger age or whatever excuse they could bring for him. The Flash, due to the heavy amount of influence the character has now received from the Wally West era of the Flash, he's the jokester of the group, even though he wasn't always the jokester of the group, but that's the legacy Wally West has left as the Flash. And Aquaman, it kind of varies, but he's more on the serious side too. Yeah. But basically what I'm getting at here is that not every character is serious, and from the looks of it, from the actors they've casted, Ezra Miller is not a comedic actor, for example. So right now, I'm thinking the Flash movie is going to be taking a very serious tone. They're probably going to exploit Barry's mother getting murdered, and that's going to set the tone for the movie.
Right. Yeah.
And my only worry is that people are going to go into Justice League remembering the cartoon and other media, and instead they are not going to be bored. They're probably going to be entertained, but they're going to leave the movie, and they're just going to – it's just when they talk about it, they're not going to be smiling.
You know, I think it's worthwhile to note the fact that people could have said that about the Nolan movies, and you see how, you know, while they may get criticized in some circles, I'm personally not a huge fan of theirs, how universally popular they were. Now, that had to do with the fact that they were good movies, but
they were terrible Batman movies.
Yeah, they were bad Batman movies. They were very serious. I mean, they had a little bit of maybe some dry sarcasm.
Well, they should have been like that though, tonally. Like Batman's a serious character.
Like that tonally, but I'm saying that's kind of proof that, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be funny as long as it's, you know, good or quote unquote, you know, badass. Because the Nolan trilogy is running around with millions of people that, you know, worship it, for lack of a better word.
Well, you know, I think
that's true, but I look at
like Jay did a video how long ago? I don't remember, and I remember he came under fire by a bunch of people in his comments because he was saying that he didn't like Christian Bale's Batman and he didn't like this and that. And like everything Jay was saying was true, because as a Batman fan, you watch those movies, and if you're a Batman fan of the comics, those are terrible fucking Batman movies outside of Batman Begins. That's the most closest you're going to get to year one. The Dark Knight is the Joker show. The Dark Knight Rises is a complete bastardization of everything the character stands for. And, you know, that influenced the DC universe because at the head, the CEO was like, oh, Dark Cells influenced that, right? And we have this new guy coming in, and I really don't want that to rub off onto it, because as dark as brooding as Batman needs to be, there still needs to be a split down the universe where you can have that comedic element. And that's one of the reasons that I'm going to miss Hal Jordan. You know, I go back and watch Green Lantern, and there's legitimately parts of that movie that are so good that it's a shame they didn't just, you know, Incredible Hulk and add that movie into the universe. Yeah. Because there's actually parts of that movie where you watch it, much like Man of Steel, they're so good that you can see what they're trying, but then they're held back by having to be dark and brooding, right? And it really sucks and holds everything back.
Armin, you just made me really sad because you brought up Green Lantern, which I'm not sad because you brought up the movie, but I'm sad because most likely they're going with Jon Stewart. Mm-hmm. They're going to make, because he's military, they're going to make him very serious probably.
I think they're going to stick with Hal.
I see them making him very... I don't see them sticking with Hal Jordan. Only reason I say that is because he's not even the active Green Lantern for the Justice League in the comics right now.
They don't even have one, right?
They don't even have... Well, they have Powering, who's supposed to be their Green Lantern.
I think they're going to bring back Simon Baz, too, to have a relationship with Power.
They've pushed Hal Jordan to running the Green Lantern Corps right now, and more, like, everybody else but Hal Jordan has been the Green Lantern on Earth since then, and they kind of put him in that position so he can't ever be the Green Lantern of Earth again because the responsibilities to the Corps are too much now, where he couldn't leave that. But my only worry is, and I look at Man of Steel, from what I said earlier, I hope I'm wrong. Again, I want the movies to be good. I don't want them to just be dark, serious, brooding, whatever have you. But look at Man of Steel. A lot of people criticize the movie because of the tone. And the tone would work perfectly for the Nolan movies because that's a totally different character, and the mood is perfect for the character and, you know, his type of storytelling. But for Superman, scenes that are supposed to be uplifting and full of optimism, like the scene where he's flying through Africa, that was that, as much as I could really tell, they were trying to capture that scene from All-Star. I think it was All-Star Superman.
Yep, All-Star Superman.
They were trying so hard to capture that scene, which was full of life and energy and happiness and joy. They were trying so hard to catch it, but the tone of the movie, just the overall tone, just dragged that down.
Mm-hmm.
So if you were to just see that scene, you could see like the little burst, kind of like a chicken cracking out of its shell, like a baby chicken, and everything. Like like a chick. You could see like the little pecks, like it's trying to burst out, but that shell is just keeping it from really shining. And that's the only worry I have, is that shell is going to keep the characters from fully being the characters that everybody knows them to be. But with that being said, though, I also want to bring up, because it just hit me, the Joker. I call it the Joker problem.
Oh God.
Whenever they cast an actor, everyone uses Heath Ledger as an example.
or they use like Mark Ruffalo for the Incredible Hulk as an example of like a character that doesn't have to look exactly like the portrayal of the comics. I think that's a bullshit example. Both of them are. First off, because the Hulk, Mark Ruffalo turns into the Hulk, so that's not really like. How much do you expect? Like, the Hulk looks like the Hulk. That's what I'm gonna say. Like, no one's gonna complain that if Mark Ruffalo was Bruce Banner and just Bruce Banner, I could see that because Edward Norton looks like Bruce Banner.
Yeah, he looked
No
exactly.
doubt about it. But with like Heath Ledger, fantastic actor. When it comes to the appearance of the character, you don't have to worry about it because he has the makeup on, or they would bleach his skin, or. So I just feel like it's a bullshit excuse that people use when it comes to casting actors, and that's all I'm going to say on the matter. I just wanted to get my opinion out there for it. But let's talk some optimism, though. I feel like we're really been bringing it down on DC.
Well, I have a question for everybody.
Go ahead.
This is off topic. Besides Justice League, Part 1, Part 2, and Batman v Superman, what movie in the DC film state do you think is going to do the best?
Ooh, I'm just going to shoot out first really quick so everyone else can go. I, believe it or not, think I'm going to take Batman v Superman out. I think that's cheating because it's a team-up movie.
Yeah,
that's not fair at all. I want to say it's a tie for me between Shazam and Wonder Woman. And the reason I say that is because Wonder Woman, she's a powerful character in the comic book industry, and I think people underestimate that. Not only because she's like the most popular female superhero of all time, but because just like Superman and Batman, she has intense name value.
I'm going Wonder Woman too. I think another thing you didn't touch on that I think is going to be really important: female-led superhero movie.
I did say that.
Yeah, I mean you mentioned she's a powerful female character, but I think it's a female-led superhero movie. That'll get a lot of traction in certain circles. And whether it's good or bad, and I believe in Gal Gadot. I think she'll do okay. It's the name value coupled with that female superhero kind of role. It's that movie that a lot of people have been looking for. I think it'll be big.
Mine's Aquaman. Straight up Aquaman. I'm saying it. It's just Aquaman because you have Jason Momoa, who has a big fan base, like a huge fan base because of Game of Thrones and all these other movies he's done. So he's gonna have to prove the point that Aquaman's a badass. We all know he's a badass, but he's gonna show everybody how it's gonna be badass. And I think his movie is gonna be the most complex because it's gonna be underwater. I still don't know how they're gonna do it. I don't know how they're gonna.
That the reason Aquaman could do really good is I think it's visually gonna look stunning, sort of like how Avatar did that. Like it was like amazing. I think if they show Atlantis and everything look like amazing underwater, they could just grab people's attention right from there.
Obviously, I think anybody listening knows I'm going to say Aquaman. And, not just because I'm fanboying, visually, it's going to look different than everything else, right? Like, you have this underwater kingdom, you have a king, right? And if the story is, in fact, going to be based on the trench, which we heard a rumor, so, these giant, nasty creatures jumping from the ocean, attacking the land, possessing, and the land people hate Aquaman. Automatically there, the moment you see that, teaser trailer, right, you can put, a flash of Atlantis. You have Jason Momoa's voiceover, he's talking about, how much he hates the surface dwellers and how they pollute his, oceans, shows the oil spilling. All you have to do is literally show him giant, like 300-foot tsunami heading towards, Metropolis or something, the water hand glowing, and a bunch of creatures you've never seen in the ocean before, and just hits the coastline. I think everybody goes and buys a ticket because they go, the fucking Aquaman guy that Family Guy makes fun of is wrecking cities with the tidal waves. And no one's going to see that. And if Marvel's not going to pull the trigger on Namor, that's going to be the most unique movie you're going to get in the next decade. Because who the fuck wants to see? Everybody wants to see SpongeBob be a badass. There's Aquaman, right? It's badass SpongeBob. So there you go.
You just compare SpongeBob to Aquaman.
That's what everybody does. So there you go.
I mean, like you said earlier, though, like, because DC released their film slate, like, maybe they could just have, like, make a Namor movie before Aquaman, because now that Marvel knows what DC
I have a feeling Marvel Universal is going to pull a Namor right out of their assholes and throw it up on the screen. Even if it sucks, which it has chance to do it because Namor's such an odd character, I mean, but I think they're gonna have to do that just to beat DC.
It'll be really interesting to see if they even try to translate Namor, because he'd have to be like the first Marvel character that's just completely an asshole. Like,
Yeah.
for Tony Stark, at least he's charismatic, but Namor, you really have to bring the I am better than you and I know it attitude.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think they'd be able to pull it off.
And Namor essentially has to be like Charlie Sheen without the drugs. Like, no one likes that character, and that's what Namor has to be. That's so hard to sell to as a movie. You're like, yeah, that's never gonna happen. And I think that's why you haven't seen a Namor movie, because the way he has to be. So.
So what else? Can we talk about Civil War?
Yeah, let's talk about some Marvel stuff. We've been talking all about DC,
God.
and it's making me, it's bringing me down.
I think that should be a separate video.
I know, seriously.
Maybe I will split it up. I don't know. I might split it up.
Let's wrap this one up then. We definitely have some different viewpoints on this, but I think it's all related to the fact that this is such a huge question mark. We're so far away from Batman versus Superman, so really everything's up in the air. I think until that happens, and I feel bad because there's so much pressure on that film, but so yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the end of the DC portion.
Yes. Now moving into the Marvel portion.
All I want is cast Joe Magaleto as Shazam. I want that to happen. Make it happen. Cast Armin as Ocean Master. He can pull it off. I know he's been hitting the gym, so he can pull it off.
Gains.
Tommy can be Billy Batson. Fuck it. We'll just go with that.
Fuck yes.
And Josh can be, I don't know, Cyborg's best friend, since he's racist.
Cyborg. I want to be Beast Boy.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Beast Boy. All green.
Teen Titans show, here we go.
I want to be the red Beast Boy.
I'm
I want to be the green Beast Boy.
I'm just over here as Doctor Strange, so fuck you guys.
No, I just realized, what is Beast Boy like for colorblind people?
Oh, shit.
Alright, so anyways, moving on to the Marvel stuff.